Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Patriotic Communist. It has been a while. I'm doing, like I said in my last podcast, this show is now coming out every other week. And I have a few stories for you guys today. So the first one is a classic case of capitalist price gouging. And also, what this story really illustrates to me is why it's so quintessentially important for people's necessities. That people's necessities like medicine, like food, like water, like shelter, none of those things should be in private ownership. They should be owned by all of us, by the people. They shouldn't be controlled and manipulated for profit to benefit the few. So, Gilead Sciences have blatantly price gouged and exploited the demand that has been created for treatment for the COVID-19 virus. If this can potentially save someone's life that has COVID-19, then they should have the right to get it in a civilized society. But no, that's not how we do it. Instead, Gilead Sciences is deciding that it's going to charge $3,120 for a 5-day therapeutic course. Basically a treatment for the coronavirus after you get it. And this research on this drug, by the way, is not really crazy promising. Although there ain't a ton of research done, it's not really the point. In fact, the reason that they're that they're arguing that it's because Gilead Science is standing by this horrific price that tons of Americans that are susceptible to the virus aren't going to be able to afford, especially with the millions and millions of Americans that don't have health insurance. It's a pretty inhumane to be doing this during a pandemic when treating people that are sick with the pandemic benefits all of us. The health of everyone in our society benefits all of us. But anyway, the research on this drug is not even crazy promising. It's been artificially hyped up for profit. This price is estimated to be 400 times higher than what is necessary to profit off of. So what this really exposes is that we are in a pandemic and corporations take advantage of the demand for treatment. They take advantage of the negative impact of the pandemic. This is some of the most blatant price gouging I've ever seen. And again, I really do think that this just goes to show, like, we wouldn't have this problem if the same way we have freedom of speech, we had freedom of fucking shelter and water and food. Like, this should be no-brainers. This isn't even about necessarily communism or socialism. You could do this. I guess it would have to be through social democracy methods if you're going to have it in a capitalist system, through regulations and whatnot of the private markets or nationalization of specific markets. But you don't even need to abolish private property in order to ensure people at least fucking food, water, medicine, shelter. Anyways, the next thing that I have to say is extremely disturbing. So, the mainstream news and also just people in general tend to cite, when they're talking about unemployment, they tend to cite the unemployment report that is collected monthly. But that report only accounts for people that are actively seeking employment. So those numbers are always way lower than the amount of people that are actually employed. So, according to the BLS and their calculation, the BLS employment population ratio calculation, where they take the ratio of working age people that are working and that aren't working. So it's much more accurate to depict how much of your country has a job, is employed. We've broken a world record with this number. It's stunning. According to the BLS employment population ratio, 47.2 of working age Americans were without work in the month of May. 47.2%. Basically half of working age Americans. This number may be slightly lower for June, since the premature sociopathic reopening that's been happening. By the way, I said that this reopening was crazy and that it was going to cause lots of death. And I was right, and now everyone knows it. And they are lying. It's not hard to find the truth. You just need to know where to look. This number may be slightly lower for June, but I don't have that data right now. I don't think they do either. So if you didn't think that these unemployment numbers alone were scary enough, remember the CARES Act? It was the bill the Senate passed to bail out the rich and give less than crumbs to the poor. Well, Congress passed, my bad, not just it. Congress passed it. Well, part of the CARES Act was a temporary $600 weekly increase to unemployment benefits enacted in the CARES Act. But this is set to end July 25th. And what this is going to do is take away 2/3 of 20 million Americans' income. I'll repeat that. And this is going to take away 2/3 of the income of 20 million Americans. We also have an eviction apocalypse on the way. Partly because of that, partly because of the unemployment. These are all related, obviously. But also, moratoriums are expiring all over the place. There's a federal housing one that was part of the CARES Act, which is set to end around the end of July. And also, state after state after state is going to start allowing evictions to happen again. And if they just let this go on, I'm telling you guys, the 10 cities are going to fucking explode. We are going to have a housing crisis like we have never seen in our lifetimes. And this could have all been prevented. This isn't happening in other countries. All this bullshit, this could have been prevented. Don't forget that. Our system, our institutions have completely failed us. My heart goes out to everyone that is facing evictions and homelessness soon. My heart really goes out to you. I am so mad at this country every day the more that I read about how bad things are getting. And I cannot believe that people with power don't even have the heart to do the very basic minimum of food, water, and shelter for the people that make their fucking wealth and life and society and goods and businesses fucking possible. But anyways, we have larger food lines on the way, like much larger, by the way. This type of shit causes major hunger. People don't understand what's coming. They really don't. I barely see anyone's heads exploding. You know, I'm a political junkie and I barely see it. One other thing about this whole eviction thing. I watched The Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, and he had a whole episode about evictions, and I'm not going to get into the details, and, you know, maybe I'll spend some other time in this show debunking that episode. Not debunking it even. It's not like he said too much false information per se, but he framed the situation as if it was greedy landlords that aren't giving renters a break. And period, that's pretty much the whole problem. And he barely talked about how banks own most of these fucking properties. I don't know if they own most of them, but they own a hell of a lot of them. I bet you they do own most of them. And if they don't now, they're going to. One other thing about the economy is that the stock market has been soaring recently at crazy levels while the average American suffers. This economic depression paired with the CARES Act was a corporate coup. We are seeing a transition into a vastly more unequal society, the likes of which we have never seen in this society. This really shows that the government's actions in response to this pandemic was to protect and expand the owning class's wealth, while they only made symbolic and temporary moves to help the people, the 99.5% of United States citizens. This is because we live in a fascist state. Plain and simple. This is neo-fascism. So the last thing I'm going to talk about today is that there's a claim going around about the Russian government placing a bounty on American troops' head. And, you know, basically giving this bounty to the Taliban in Afghanistan is the claim. They're saying that Russia was offering Taliban money to kill American citizens. Now, all of the mainstream media, as a result of these claims going around, and I'm going to get to where they came from in a second, what the sources are. I'm going to get to that. But all the mainstream media seems to be accusing Trump of not escalating our war games with the second largest nuclear arsenal on the planet. The Lincoln Project, which is a conservative anti-Trump think tank, I believe, made incredibly xenophobic and disturbingly aggressive ads immediately after these claims were made. So what this is doing is prodding an unstable and unhinged president that's extremely immature and has a big ego. What this is doing is it's pushing him and taunting him, saying, why aren't you killing Russians? Or at the very least, why aren't you putting more sanctions on Russia? Why aren't you putting more sanctions on Russia and hurting the Russian people more? Why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you making life harder for Russian people? Guys, Vladimir Putin is filthy fucking rich. I don't know if you guys knew that. Vladimir Putin is fucking loaded. He's super rich, okay? So what do sanctions do? Sanctions hurt Russians. It doesn't hurt Putin. And they're accusing Putin of putting these bounties out. They say his name constantly. They act like he's Dr. Evil, when really he's just another neo-fascist, just like they are. It's really, really a spectacle. Now, these claims lack any credibility whatsoever. They are sourced from anonymous intelligence officials, and we've been given no other evidence to support these claims other than the word of these faceless suits. If you take what anonymous deep state officials say at face value, then you need to work on your critical thinking skills and read some history, because they lie a lot. They've talked about how they lie. I'm pretty sure it's Mike Pompeo that said, we lie, we cheat, we steal. They don't hide this shit. History doesn't hide this shit. I mean, the lists are endless. MK Ultra is one tiny example where they were being complete maniacs and liars and ignoring people's constitutional rights and ignoring the truth and ignoring the rule of law. I just want to put it out there that this claim that the Russian government put bounties on American troops' heads to the Taliban. Guys, the Taliban, we've been at war with them for a while. They've already, you know why they said the Taliban? They said the Taliban because the Taliban have indeed killed American troops. So, therefore, you can't really, it's very hard to disprove that anyone ever gave them money for something like this. They're doing it because they don't need to show you a body to make a gullible mind think it might be plausible. Okay? You know, they said that Russian agents murdered U.S. troops. That would sound more far-fetched than put bounties on them through the Taliban. This has resulted in the mainstream media being extremely war hawking. No, the fucking Americans don't want a war with Russia. That is ridiculous. No one wants a war with Russia. It's fucking asinine. I feel like I don't even need to say much more about that. And I really hope that people aren't convinced by this. This is McCarthyism, by the way. I mean, we went through this before. That's what all of this is. It's McCarthyism. It's not the fucking 50s anymore. And I don't think, I don't have too much faith that this is going to convince many people. But I also don't have too much faith that the deep state's going to give a fuck, you know, when it comes to starting a war and everything, about how many people are completely convinced at this point. But that might just be me being a nihilist. Anyways, that is the conclusion of this show today. I did this one much less scripted than normal. So let me know if you want me to get back to writing most of what I'm saying beforehand. I'm not totally the best on my feet. I'm going to have to do a lot of editing for this, and it might just feel a little bit less structured. But, you know, I'm going to put links to the articles that I read that informed me about the events that I talked about on this show today. I appreciate you guys for listening, and I'll see you in another 2 weeks. Stay vigilant and stay safe. Max Rice is signing off.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Patriotic Communist. All of the music you heard in this podcast was produced and performed by me, Max Rice, and if you would like to check it out, just search Max Rice on any streaming platform. That's M-A-X-R-I-C-E. Yes, like the food rice. This is Max Rice signing off.
all distracted by media. The misdirection of attention benefits big powers I mentioned. Y'all try to lessen the questions and attentions. Money equals power. We gotta kill this connection. These force-fed concepts make no sense. How y'all hating immigrants and we controlled by the 1%. Zombified by screens. Dehumanization comes easily. All I hear are American supremacists, but this line of thought is a normality, full of fallacies. While we stay combative oversee laws and more laws. As far as I can see, and no one cares because of the mass distractions. We're expected to not question how the government uses our taxes, unless it's helping people. That they ramble like that's all to see. Though we need to free the people, we need a fucking hero. We need some MLK, FDR style of change. We're full of pain and ignorant, but won't live in fear. Though we need some yellow vest, bulletproof vests and bold claims. We need that fire in our hearts that can't be tamed. We need to reject and correct our collective violent actions, but it won't happen. Fuck, we're all distracted.